Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei saying on Sunday a U.S. attack on Iran would spark a regional conflict. That's according to Iranian state media. Also, a U.S. Navy destroyer docked at the Israeli port of Eilat was seen on Sunday maneuvering into the Red Sea. The U.S. Navy currently has 6 destroyers, 1 aircraft carrier, and 3 combat ships in the region as tensions between Washington and Iran remain high. Despite talks, joining me now to discuss is geopolitical analyst Brandon Weichert, author of The Shadow War, Iran's Quest for Supremacy. Brandon, welcome back to the show. What do you make of the Ayatollah's remarks about a potential regional war?
Well, I think it's very clear, despite whatever maneuvering you're seeing right now from the Americans and Israelis, it's very obvious that the United States and the Israelis are primed to attack the Islamic Republic of Iran. What you've seen over the last 36 to 72 hours, these explosions in Iran, for instance, I think it was seven different cities. There were strategic explosions. I believe that was Israeli shaping operations. They were preparing the battle space. It sounds like they might have targeted an IRGC naval commander. I don't know if they got him. Some say they did. But that man's role would have been to lead a naval flotilla to blockade the Strait of Hormuz if the Americans came in hot and attacked Iran, which I believe they are. The key thing here right now that I think is giving Trump some cold feet is the fact that the Saudis are saying they are not going to assist in shooting down any possible missiles that are fired by Iran at American bases or at Israel. Of course, Iran has a massive missile facility. And also the Iranian anti-ship ballistic missile. These systems are serious threats to the U.S. carrier. The carrier is hiding right now, I was told, behind Oman with its destroyers. So what's going on now is we are now being threatened. And by the way, that anti-ship ballistic missile capability of Iran it's being assisted by Chinese satellite intelligence. They're tracking our carrier in real time.
So you think this attack against Iran is imminent. What could that look like? Give us the range of options.
Well, I think it's imminent, but I think right now the Trump administration is pausing because they're trying to move as many air defense assets into the region because we're depleted and the Israelis are depleted too. So I think they're about to do this, but every time they get close to pulling the trigger, they pull back because they know we're not yet ready. I don't think we ever will be, but the Trump administration wants to go. The Israelis want to go. What that would look like, you would see a massive launch of aircraft from the carrier, FA-18s, the fighter planes. They would be accompanied by EA-18G Growlers, which are electronic warfare planes, whatever bombers we have already stationed in the region. And the key thing here to understand is this would not just be targeting nuclear facilities this time. This would be a comprehensive strike package. We would be targeting not only military facilities like naval facilities to try to prevent that Iranian Navy from blocking the Strait of Hormuz, but we would be targeting regime targets. This would be a regime change mission by another name. And the Iranian regime knows that, and that's why I think they would risk blockading the Strait of Hormuz or even trying to sink or destroy or damage one of our carriers. They don't care at that point what the retaliation would be because they know we're going for broke against them.
Brandon, can you compare this to what we saw unfold in Venezuela, where the U.S. military assisted law enforcement in the arrest of Nicolas Maduro? Then the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, became the interim president, and she seems to be cooperating with Trump. Trump saying they're doing a very good job. But the Iranian regime is a religious fundamentalist group. They're not, drug lords.
Right. No, I think that's a great question. And I think in a perfect world, the President Trump would love to see a replication of that. In fact, the New York Times, take it for what you will, the New York Times reported on Friday that the Trump administration was talking about doing basically dozens of Maduro-style special forces raids in the coming weeks directed against key leadership in Iran. The problem is Iran is not Venezuela. It's a fundamentally different geography. The leadership is different, as you rightly note. Even if Trump could identify a leader within the regime today, that leader is going to be far more ideologically strict or extreme than anything we saw in the Venezuelan regime. So this idea we're going to lop off the head and then sort of like take it over like a parasite, I don't think that'll work here, and it'll force us to keep escalating. And by the way, again, the geography is different. It's a more expansive country. It's a larger country, and you have to deal with all of these spread out targets. If you really want to neutralize the regime, which it sounds like Trump wants to do, this is going to be a long-term strike, and it might end up with American pilots being shot down because the Iranian air defenses are better than what Venezuela had.
Now, the situation in Iran is complicated for other reasons as well. I mean, it's arguable that, or they've been noted for suppressing all kinds of forces that could then spring up and do battle with one another if they were, removed in one way or another. So how does the U.S. balance all this? I mean, it sounds like a much more complicated post-conflict situation to manage than, say, with Venezuela.
Well, the Pottery Barn rule's in effect. You break it, you own it. And I know President Trump doesn't believe that. And he's using the Venezuela experience as proof positive. But this is a very different kind of mission, and it's a very different region than Latin America, different culture, different norms. You're right. Once we knock over the regime, which, by the way, the regime is brittle in Iran, I think it wouldn't be hard to ultimately knock it over. The question of what comes next, the second and third order effects. I know these protesters are passionate, and it's wonderful to see them standing up for their rights, but I don't know if they have the capacity to formulate a post-regime system that won't just revert to more, authoritarianism or worse, sectarian conflict. We could see Iran become the new Lebanon. Remember in the 80s, Lebanon broke up into like a multi-sided civil war for decades. The country's never been the same since. We don't want to replicate that in Iran, although there are some people, I think, who do in the United States and in Israel who would love to see just weak countries all over the Middle East. But ultimately, that will breed terrorism. That will breed real bad criminality, things that we're going to be dealing with for decades on. And we don't want to have to deal with that, especially given Iran's strategic location along the Strait of Hormuz, one of the great oil choke points of the world. So you're right. We don't really have a post-war stabilization plan. And we're already struggling to get air defense systems into the region. We would need an even larger force to secure post-war Iran, and the Israelis certainly can't help us with that. So this is really a very dangerous prospect the president is playing with.
So, President Trump says Iran is talking with the U.S. Right now in an attempt to de-escalate everything. But the last high-profile talks the U.S. had with Iran were the backdrop of the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. So how meaningful are such talks at this point?
I don't think they're meaningful at all. I think it's another ruse. I think the president and the Israeli leadership used talks last time to lull the Iranians into a false sense of security, and then they sprung the trap on them in the 12-day war. I think something similar is here. Trump is clearly buying time because he is worried, understandably, that the carrier is not sufficient enough and that the anti-ship ballistic missile capability augmented by China in Iran is very serious, and there's not enough air defenses in the region to protect U.S. bases, personnel, and the Israelis. If Iran goes full bore in a missile barrage against Israel, Tel Aviv and Haifa will be flattened. There will be an economic downturn. It will be a nightmare for our friends in Israel. And all of this just seems pretty unnecessary right now because the Iranian regime at home is very weak. It is brittle. The people will eventually be able to overcome. They don't need us bombing them into democracy. It never works out.
And just in closing here, Brendan, this is a rapidly evolving situation. What should we be watching for in the coming hours and days?
Well, what we should be watching for is what the carrier is doing. And right now, like I said, the carrier is ducked behind Oman, which probably means there's real concern about their safety. So once you see the greater levels of air defense assets moved in, at that point, the president will probably reassess. But remember, the president did want to go in on January 15th, and he was ready to pull the trigger, and he was pulled back by our military and the Israelis, as well as the Arab states. So perhaps he's ready to go now. I think he's ready to go, but there's something holding him back. And the only thing that I can think of is you've got our military guys and you've got the Israelis saying, well, maybe not this second. And you've got the Arabs saying, we're not going to help. But if something changes with those groups where they say, okay, we're good, or if the American military feels like they're secure, we will go in. I have no doubt. If you look at how we're lined up in the region, this is a strike package waiting. That's what's going on here.
All right. Geopolitical analyst Brandon Weichert, thank you so much. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.